Hooker, did you ever think, though, like this Paris Raceway local kid, I mean, would become up on the Mount Rushmore of motocross racers? I mean, it was kind of a slow build. I feel like, anyways, like I didn't know Jeremy really until kind of like Mickey. He was winning some Mickey Thompson races, and I'm like, oh, okay, like that's pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, and that was 90.
Yep.
Right, so that was still even a year from Pro Circuit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like no one knew. I wasn't anyone until I was. It was like went like overnight kind of thing, you know. Like we were winning local Paris stuff.
Yeah. But you were good at Trans-Cal.
I was decent. I was decent, but you know, there was it was guys usually better than me there.
After Seattle is when Team Green hired you?
Yeah, that was 89,
right? 89?
Seattle Supercross in beginning of 89.
Yeah, because you rode Hondas beginning of 89.
I was racing Hondas
yeah.
for Raceway Honda in Paris. Mm-hmm. And then that was shortly like right then I was when I was working at Vaughn's, then working at Raceway Honda, then riding Hondas, and then that happened. Had a great race at Seattle, finished second in my like second or third Supercross, which I had no business really probably being up there. But anyway, after that I got a Team Green ride, and that's where that started. Yeah,
Mickey Thompson series.
Yeah. Well, just think about that. I mean, you went from getting a Team Green ride to 250 Supercross champion in 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Yeah, maybe even sooner. It was a pretty steep learning curve, I think, around there.
Yeah. You learn pretty quickly, by the way.
Yeah,
I didn't learn how to ride motocross, though. I was not very good at motocross. It took me about 5 or 6 years to figure that out.
Yeah, all you had to do was wake up and go, okay, I want to go ride moto today. And
Yeah. Well, I was lazy, so I mean, I'll just say it. I was lazy.
And we're gonna have Lamps in here, and of course, Mike, you've told the story. You know, you and Steve go way back, right?
Yep.
And you were one of the guys to tell Mitch, hey, like, there's this NorCal kid. He's doing pretty well in this stupid 360 or whatever it was that that he was racing, right? Let's hire him for the first 125 team.
Yeah, I mean, it was a similar story even with Steve. I mean, being back in Ponca and Loretta's, and these guys were more 125, 250, and I was like 250, 500 guy.
Right.
I never rode 125 till I was a pro, so we were always at the same races, and usually they were focusing on 125 stuff, and I was focusing on the bigger bikes.
Yeah.
So we never really raced a lot together, but I mean, same story as Jeremy. We're just wanting to help good people. And
were you kind of like you were heavily involved with Mitch at this point, right? Making while you kind of worked your way up from shop guy to making pipes for him.
Yep.
Were you keeping an eye open for people? Like, did you kind of be like, hey, we need to help this guy. We need to help this. Like, was that kind of like one of the things?
Yeah, because I was at most of the amateur races anyways, racing and trying to help, and I'd carry pipes in our Pro Track trailer, and it said Pro Circuit on the side, and Mitch would pay for some gas, and I worked there and stuff. So yeah, I would be the source. People come over and get pipes, and just
they're like, does that guy still do Huskies? I got a Husqvarna.
We never had any Husky pipes in that trailer, never.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny to think about now, right?
Yeah.
And then of course, where you are now in the industry. Were you ever like when you started and, Jeremy, Lamson, Buell, these kids, didn't work out for you, right? Because you went to school.
Yeah.
But were you ever like, shit, like, because you were a good rider.
Sure. Yeah, I was, and to go back to your earlier question, like, I only knew California, and we were winning local California races, and there were a lot of good guys there, and that's kind of our world, and we thought we were the best anyways, so not knowing what else is going on in the rest of the industry, we were pretty ignorant to everything else. And then once I got back to Ponca, man, I hated Ponca City. I went from winning intermediate stuff to getting 10th at Ponca, but then got to Loretta Lynn's, more of an outdoor track. Fit in a little bit better, but it was we needed it.
Yeah.
We needed to be able to help everybody out, so that was the conduit for that for me.
Yeah, you were the kind of guy. Speaking of Payton, phone rings the other day, like just before Millville. It's Mitch.
Yeah.
So I answer it. I'm in the middle of something.
You got to answer.
Yeah, I got to
always answer.
You have to answer.
He's like, I hear you're having a ride day at Millville. And I'm like, you want to ride? He's like, I haven't for a while. And I go, well, I'm having a ride day. And he's like, I need to get some people in it. And I'm like, all right. Yeah, like again, my thing was full, but when Mitch Payton calls, I'll get your two buddies into it, right? Not a problem. So it was easy to do. And, of course, the story, we've told it a few times. He gets hired from Team Green for Honda, and him, Jack, maybe you all think it's going to be Honda.
Well,
Oh,
was.
that's
It
for
was.
sure.
That
That's
was,
for sure.
100%.
Right.
It was
Absolutely.
Honda.
It was Honda.
Yeah, it was until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it's like, now we got this guy. He's in Corona or in Anaheim. I
Well,
guess
we
at that point.
were like, hey, we made varsity team. All right. And then they're like, all right, you're on JV. We're like, what? So that's kind of how that went in the beginning because we were the first, 125 factory effort
Yeah.
really
Yep.
that kind of was, put up with a private sort of company, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that was the
absolutely.
first thing. So, yeah, it was. It didn't matter. We had so much fun with Pro Circuit. It would have
Yeah.
been not nearly as fun if I was on the with those
Yeah,
guys because
yeah.
it was like JMB and Stan and those guys. They really didn't even like each other at that
All the
time.
mechanics hated each other. Yeah.
We all had a great time.
Yeah.
So we were kids. We were all growing up, and that was. I mean, it made it a lot better. But when you're a kid and you go like, all right, factory Honda, and then you just get this death blow, like, oh, you're on the private side of this deal.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you're like,
So
oh, wait.
you have a blue and white bike.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
yeah,
a red
yeah,
one.
yeah. And you guys are all wearing the same gear. You
Yeah.
look exactly like each
Yeah.
other. So there is that. What do you remember about those early days? I guess I'll start with you, Skip, about the early days of Peak before, like, the off-season testing, that kind of era. Like,
Man, we tested a lot. I think that the one story that sticks out to me was when we were finalizing pipes, I think, and I don't know, we were down to 4 or 5 pipes, and we're just doing laps after laps, and we're disguising the pipes and writing Japanese symbols on some of them to try to just maybe not to get them to choose something, but think there was a little more support than what we had because
really,
it was all about building up the morale
Yeah.
because as it turned out that was probably the best 125 up until Lammy's factory bike in the 95-96 time.
Yeah.
those bikes were good.
yeah, I mean, it was a good base, but you watch some of those old races, and they're on YouTube. The Peak Honda bikes are unreal. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
MX
relevant to
yeah.
the other brands. I mean, it was like night and day.
Yeah, no,
even in the big bike back then.
Yeah.
Those days.
Yeah. 91 High Point is on there, 125 class, and Swink is blowing by guys outside, up hills.
Yeah.
I mean, factory riders.
Yeah.
The bikes are good.
And at the time, we had no idea how good the bike was because we only knew what we knew.
Sure.
We've been
Yeah.
riding them. We've been testing them.
Yeah.
Everything was going on. Everybody's excited about it. And then then we're out there, and what was it? Goat gets on with his boots, and I'll show these youngins how to go around the
Paris,
track.
yeah.
And he comes back in and goes, "Man, this thing's really fast."
Oh, Goat Brecker.
Yeah, Brecker did. And but we all had we talk about Jeremy. He probably, Jeremy hates losing more than he likes winning, and we talk about Ricky that. But there's one person that probably trumps all of that, and that's Mitch.
Yeah.
Mitch he gave up and did anything that it was going to take to make these bikes good, and that hasn't stopped.
Yeah. Hooker, I talked to Dave Arnold for this Honda Works thing
Yeah.
a little while ago, and Dave was like, that HPP system on the 125s. There's nothing better. It's hard to maintain. It's not easy to clean for the average
there's a lot
consumer. Pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And Dave was like, that's the number one power valve system in the world. If they still had that, blah, blah, blah. Dave was very excited about that.
Yeah, the HPP was cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
Changed the exhaust port height, and
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the manufacturers had their own version of it.
But it seemed like Honda had it down a little better, or
I think so.
Yeah.
And then like Mitch's philosophy on what to do with the engines. A lot of people were after big horsepower numbers and stuff, but we really wanted the bikes to be rideable, I guess you'd say. Your hand connected to the rear wheel and just have everything be predictable.
Yep.
On it, but it just happened to be that they were that, and they had a lot of power, and that was kind of the beginning of Pro Circuit getting a dyno, a Superflow dyno. We got that put in, and we were developing on the dyno, and then we were building parts and taking it out and letting the riders
Right.
ride it. And I was still racing a lot then, but still doing the race team stuff, so I had good seat of the pants feel and could kind of eliminate all the things that weren't so good, and then let these guys go out and test.
I know it's a long time ago, but you look at the team back then, like Jeremy had won one race, stood on the podium another time, or maybe just one other podium, I think.
One podium, yeah.
Lamson hadn't done much. Swink broke his leg and he was a Team Green hot kid, but was coming off a broken leg. And Buell was sort of this like workman privateer kid, right? So it's easy to look back now and be like, oh, like Lamson's 2-time champion and Swink's a 2-time Supercross champion and this guy's this guy. But going into the season, there's no way, like, I put myself in, I'm in the media game now, right? I put myself as back in the day working at MXA. There's no way I'm sitting there going, oh yeah, these 4 guys are gonna win every race, but 3 or whatever, right? Like I just it's pretty remarkable that everything came together. Bikes, which we just talked about, and then all of these guys maturing. I think that would have been a pretty big shock for everybody to see the success.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's due to us working all together.
Yeah.
We were building each other up, right? Because if you're out there on a different team and you're out there by yourself, and then you got to ride with the whoever the top pro is at the time on that team, maybe your confidence isn't high. But we were all sort of same speed. We were all growing together. We were learning how to be adults, pretty much, and all testing. The whole thing was like growing together, and we all sort of complemented each other and got the confidence from that. And I think that team atmosphere when you're young really made a big difference. Yeah. I mean, of course, we had a great platform. The bike was amazing and all that stuff too. But there's a lot of things that were cool about that.
Yeah.
I think if you were to try to, I don't know if you were to try to write it and pick it and do it and make it happen again, I don't know that you could, because to your point, I mean, it just.
Well, they try
just
now
happened.
with Star Yamaha.
Yeah.
I mean, and it works good.
Yeah,
There's a
they're
lot of
successful.
Stars Yamaha kids up front.
Yeah.
So that kind of they're re-engineering or redoing the same model that we had, really.
Yeah. But it just came together and it worked. And the one thing I think everybody shared in common is there was one goal.
Yeah.
We wanted to win. There was no question, no second guessing that at all.
And we were afraid of losing.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Did you get to ride Honda Land back then?
Yeah.
They let you.
Yeah, we did.
They let all you guys.
So
do
we
that? Okay.
like my first year on Honda was 91,
Yeah.
and then 92. We were both 125 years, but I think around 93 when I moved up to the big bike is when they switched to Corona.
Oh, okay.
So they had it for 91 and 92. We used to go up there for a couple of days at a time. We'd stay overnight in the hotel in Simi Valley. We'd test and all that. And then if I wanted to go practice on my own, I would just go up and ride with one of the Bale or one of those guys, get a hotel, ride the next morning, and then go back home.
Right.
So it was a bit of an inconvenience, but the place was so cool and so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Track was so big. The jumps were huge. It was like, this is the place where the like Johnny O and David Bailey and Ricky Johnson all rode. I mean, this is like the place. And it had a John Savitsky track. Like, the jumps were huge. So you're riding a 125.
Yeah.
I mean, the landings were steep, and like you had to like be on your toes to ride there.
Were you there that day that J&B carved his initials in the hillside?
I wasn't there,
Okay,
but
all right,
it was
okay.
there for years. So we knew exactly what happened. But he would show up and ride for a few laps and then carve some letters in the mountain, do some trails, and ride another 2 laps, load it up, and go home. He would never really ride that much.
By the way, he was just here in town. I was trying to get him to come in
Oh,
tonight,
really?
but he split, but he was here, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been fun. But that probably, riding at Honda Land, probably, again, Honda ahead of the curve with the Supercross track. Some teams didn't even have tracks by then, right? That probably helped the kids
for
a
sure.
lot.
Yeah,
Right?
and you had a track at your house with
We rode there.
gnarly
The death
guys.
tracks?
There. I mean, it was
The
like a
death
BMX track. We made it really steep. All my friends like broke themselves off. They're so bad.
You said Phil Lawrence was banned from there? So,
Phil like had like 2-3 concussions, 2 collarbones. Like every time I'm like, hey, let's do this jump backwards. He's like, yeah. And I do it, and he just augured himself in. So it was, I felt bad because I was like, dude, you're not supposed to do that. So, it was comedy.
Yeah, so probably, do you remember, guys, Skip, Mike, do you remember anything about, like, the preseason watching these guys thinking, hey, we could win? Hey, these guys look pretty good. I mean,
I don't recall that ever crossing our mind, winning.
No.
It was just not making a fool of yourselves or ourselves. I think being there and being respectable, podium would be great. That's what I recall.
Yeah, it wasn't until it seems like it goes like this every year. You know, you build a team, and this was a new team, obviously, but we expected to do good. I didn't know that we were going to do as well as we did.
Yeah.
By any means,
Yeah.
but you kind of go in with that uncomfortable feeling of a little bit of fear in it, and that always seems to help. Make sure that you dot the I's and cross the T's, and try and do it right. But I don't know, for whatever reason, we made it through the season without our riders getting hurt. Like the opposite that happens now. Half the teams go in, and maybe it's the track, maybe it's the frequency that we rode, but.
Yeah.
But they rode every day. I know,
but
I think the difference is now they rode, and we got done what you needed to get done. You stopped. You didn't put 70 laps in.
Yeah.
I think we had that was like many firsts, right? We were the first private sort of,
that all looked the same.
Team, first outside sponsor, first time on all 4 dudes on factory Honda 125 program. There was a lot of first for us. And so I think, you know, a lot of confidence as a kid, we could be gained from that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had these team of guys around us. We had the best guys around. We had Pro Circuit. We had the Hondas. We had all this stuff. We were handpicked. It was like a lot of unknown, but at the same time, we were like sort of like ready.
Yeah.
We were ready.
Yeah. It's you know, history's easy. History's written by the winners, and you look back and you're like, whoa, look how good these guys are now, and look at all the things they did. Of course, it was a great team, but I'm trying to get across to the listeners and viewers, like, it wasn't that way. It was a little bit like, you know, hey, let's as Mitch
Trust
called
me,
it,
in the very beginning of this team, we didn't know that it would be one of the best ever.
yes,
Right?
or that people would
was.
do retro bikes
It
now,
was.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Totally.
I went to England for the two-stroke vet championships there, and there was 15 peak replica bikes. Do you know what I mean? Like,
That's cool.
just people
Yeah,
are
that's
like,
really cool.
I'm building a two-stroke. What I want it to look like. I want it to look like the team that you guys started on.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
I want to think that the way we went about it, the way Mitch, you know, he just instilled it in you that everything we did was about building confidence, whether it was in ourselves on the side, whether it was in the machine, whether it was in the rider. It was just about you started from nothing.
Yeah.
We were on the floor. We had to build everything.
Yeah.
You know, there was no team you went into that had all this history or had anything. I mean, they dropped off the works Honda that Kudowski won on a, I don't know, was it a Thursday or something? And
Yeah.
you know, we just
That
dove
thing
in.
was terrible, by the way. Really? That thing was not good. The engine on that, remember how slow that thing was? It had top power like crazy,
Yeah.
but it was unrideable. Like,
the
I don't even know how he
762
won on that
machine.
thing.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
thing was, yeah.
And then, of course, as I've talked to you guys, so much work, so many hours. No lives for either one of
Oh,
you.
no,
like,
no,
no
no.
lives.
No.
Just,
There's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Use them.
I remember Mike was always like, he'd have homework. He'd be doing homework, too. Like, after,
Oh,
like, a
from school.
test day,
Yeah.
he'd be getting
Yeah.
his notes out and doing homework. And
Right.
like, we were at races and stuff. I remember that stuff. That's pretty funny.
like, hey, practice is over, bikes are good, let me knock out some homework. Is that,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had a little bit of math.
Is that kind of
Yeah.
what it was?
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny stuff. Skip, so we'll get you back on here in a little bit to
Yep.
talk to Berlut and do some box fan stories, of course. But let's try to get Steve Lamson on if we
Absolutely.
can.
Come on, Steve.
And we're going to get another great rider coming up here.